One sec. We will get going in just a moment. I'm doing a quick check. Looks like most things are going. Cool. I'll mute myself so I don't have a nice little echo coming back. So we are on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I think the only place I can't go to right now is TikTok because I don't have enough followers. So if you are on TikTok, go follow me on TikTok so I can stream to TikTok too. That would be awesome. Um, Today's live stream, just like I do live streams every Monday, I want to make sure that you can engage in the chat. So I have a uniform chat that I can watch on any platform that you're on. So feel free to participate, please. I'd rather spend most of the time answering the questions that you have, so you get the value out of this. So that's the ultimate goal. And the topic that I want to look at today is, again, from a newsletter article that I put out, and it is titled "The Best Engineers or the Best Software Engineers Are Replaceable." And yes, it's a little bit of a clickbait title. Yes, it is. But I thought it was a really interesting concept to write about because it is sort of a philosophy that I've come to over, I guess, the past half of my career, and it comes from like my management perspective. So I want to be able to talk through that because I think it's a really interesting concept. And I think that the way it's phrased, like, that when we think about being replaceable, like that doesn't sound like a good thing, but it is. And I think the framing can kind of help get us there. So I want to talk through that. But like I said, please make sure that you are asking stuff in the chat. I'm just trying to pull up another screen here because I realize something's not going, but we'll get there. Cool. I want to make sure that I can watch the YouTube feed in particular because that's where this is going after. So cool stuff. LinkedIn, I guess LinkedIn doesn't have chat, but it has comments. So comment on it. I don't know why they don't have a built-in chat. Seems kind of silly that you have to comment on stuff, but oh well, it is what it is. And last time Twitter was not working for chat, so I'm hoping it disconnected partway through, something silly like that. So fingers are crossed that that's going. But maybe let's dive into it. Like I said, I'll be watching for questions and stuff that roll in and try to get to them as I'm talking. Okay, so the best software engineers are replaceable. Where do we start with that, right? That sounds like a pretty loaded statement. How could that be a good thing? Why do we want to strive for that? So I want to start with talking about job security because I think that when people hear replaceable, right? Like you are replaceable in your job, that sounds like you don't have any job security. That's a very bad thing from a job security perspective. And I think one of the kind of go-to things that we hear from like a job security perspective as a software engineer, right? You're thinking about working in a code base. The sort of the joke is like, oh, if you write the most important critical code, but it's contrived and no one can really, follow along with it. It's really difficult to understand. Like, there's your job security, right? That a company needs you. You have the critical information. You understand the code that was written, and there's no way that you could lose your job. The company needs you. That's your job security. So in that particular situation, you would be, described as someone that's not replaceable. How could someone replace you if you have that core piece of knowledge that is critical for the company to continue with their product, right? So I think if we latch on to that kind of thing, it's easy to kind of frame up that kind of person, someone that has this intimate knowledge that they're not sharing, they're keeping it close to their heart, right? Like that means that they're irreplaceable and they have job security. But if we think about software engineers like that, right? And this is probably very applicable outside of software engineering. If we think about people like that, that's not a great trait, right? Like you probably don't want a company of people or like even a small group of people, a small team. You don't want that to be emulated, right? Someone that is keeping things close, they're not letting anyone else work on stuff. They're the single point of failure for something that's critical. That's not something that we want to emulate, right? It's quite the opposite. We'd rather have people that are sharing knowledge, making sure that other people can work on things, no single points of failure. This is the kind of thing that we want to create in teams. This is specifically about software engineering, but I could imagine like other industries where you have teams of people. You don't want a single point of failure on the team or in the organization. So, seems like we have a bit of a challenge here. We all want job security, of course, right? And I should pause for a moment to say, like, I'm not trying to be ignorant of like the tech landscape right now. I get that that's very challenging, so I'm not trying to make light of that. I just mean in general, even before the current state of the tech industry now, in general, um, this is really about you know that feeling of having job security. This is independent of what companies are actually doing. I don't have any kind of say in that. So, okay, so we want job security, but we also want teams where we have individuals that we want emulated. We want people to be sharing knowledge, not keeping secrets, not making it such that no one else can work on stuff. So these seem like they're at odds with each other, right? So, how is it possible we can kind of go forward and not have this issue? Okay, so I think the problem with that thought process is that it sort of suggests like a causation, not like a correlation. So there is a correlation that if you keep, the most intimate, top secret, and critical knowledge about some algorithm or some part of the code base, if you keep that to yourself, yes, there is job security because they can't possibly let you go because it's so important. But it's not like a causation relationship, right? So you can have other factors. It's not like a one way type of thing. There are other things that could make it such that you have job security, not just making it so that someone can't possibly fire you because it would make their business go under. And I think that's the important thing we want to look at. We want to see if there's other things we can do that make you valuable, right? Make you valuable and still focus on what we want to get out of teams. Because at the end of the day, when we're building software engineering teams, we want to make sure we're building them with people that have behaviors and patterns that we want others to emulate. And you'll hear this a lot, right? I'm not going to totally go into the weeds on this, but when it comes to teams, I don't know what the exact like phrase is, but it's something along the lines of like, one bad apple can really kind of, sour the whole team, so to speak. So if you bring in toxic behavior and you allow that to remain in the team, um, it's the exact opposite effect of having multipliers brought in, right? So you could have a team of 10 people, and the 10th person on that team is someone that impedes others. They are a single point of failure. Um, whatever kind of toxic behavior you can think about. There's a phrase, like, I'm not going to say because I don't know if I'll get like demonetized later on YouTube, but like an intelligent jerk. You can use a different word for jerk, but the types of people that are, they're very intelligent, but they're very hard to work with. You can have these types of people on teams and they really bring down an entire team. So we don't want behavior like that on the team. Of course, we want to make sure that we can have teams where there are behaviors that we want others to emulate. And that's not to say that every single person that comes on the team is going to have all of those behaviors exactly, but the more of that kind of culture we can create on the team where you do have these good behaviors being demonstrated that you want others to model and take on for themselves, the better, right? We want more of that. So if that's what we want when we're building software teams, it's very much indicating, and I mean it's probably obvious, we don't want to have people on the team that are keeping stuff to themselves that the team needs to share, so there's no single point of failure. Just trying to connect the dots here because I want to continue on with this. This is kind of the segue into the next part of my article that I wrote, which is really about like coming to this realization. And hopefully, as I'm saying it, it sounds pretty obvious, but it's from an engineering manager's perspective. Like, a lot of my job has been building up teams, running teams, trying to get like the storming, norming, forming, norming, storming at the end. Yeah, storming's at the end of that. The point is that you're building these teams, so you might be hiring new people in or kind of creating a team from scratch. You have to have the people working together, and it's going to take a little bit of time, right? Like, it's really rare that you put a couple people together and they've never worked together before and everything's just awesome and it's totally great. There's going to be a bit of a learning, curve. You have to learn how the people that you're working with operate, how they communicate, strengths and weaknesses. That just takes time, right? You could take the same group of people, put them on a new project or change the environment and things can kind of change up a bit. So it's a big part of what my career has been getting people like that together on projects and getting them to be effective. So, if that's what I'm focused on, you can imagine that there's patterns that I like I said, I want to make sure that I'm seeing these behaviors that we can model. And something that I kind of picked up on over time, this is kind of like a introspection thing. So this whole time I'm talking about other people on the team, right? I want to make sure that I'm creating these teams they can become effective. But what I started to notice is that, like, I should be able to move away from a team and not have it fall apart. So this is the interesting part, right? Like, I'm talking about this whole time like a software engineer working on something and they're not the single point of failure. So I, as an engineering manager, once the team is like really cohesive and they're doing awesome work, they shouldn't need me. It sounds kind of funny. They shouldn't need me at all points. Like, I should be able to step back, in my opinion, if I've done a successful job, and they should be able to keep running and be effective. So I want to pause here for a second because it sounds a little bit weird. Because if I'm doing that, then what the heck is the point of my job, right? If I can just do that, get a team working together, working in a product or project space, now they're effective. Was I even necessary? Right? If I can just walk away, why should I even have a job doing that? Doesn't that sound kind of dangerous? Going back to the job security part, I'm saying this live on a camera saying, look, I should just be able to walk away. You don't need me on this team. But there's a bit of nuance to this, right? Because the point that I'm trying to get across here is that I was very valuable in creating the team. I was very valuable in trying to help form that culture, whether there's different processes in place, how people are approaching problem solving, working together. I'm trying to make sure that the team can become incredibly effective. And part of being the most effective team, in my opinion, is also removing myself as a single point of failure. So this was this kind of realization that I had that, yes, while I'm thinking about I don't want software engineers to be single points of failure, I don't want to be the single point of failure either. Because I think in order to create the best team possible, I should not be that single point of failure. That does not mean, and this is where we're going to be heading here, that does not mean that I don't offer value. It's quite the opposite. If I'm being successful at creating these teams, it means that I have offered tons of value, right? The most value that I could have added was getting the team to this point where they can be effective. So now I want to kind of back up from that because like I said, that's the realization that I had from a management perspective. But I want to bring this back to software engineers because I realize that a lot of people watching this are going to be software engineers, not necessarily in a management position. Although, if you are in a management position, that there was kind of one of the key takeaways is that I don't want you to, or in my opinion, if you are the single point of failure on your team, that's an opportunity to continue to optimize, right? Why are you the single point of failure? If people are looking to get priorities so they know what to work on, like, okay, like how can you make sure that the team understands common values? Like if you're working with other stakeholders, like a product owner, product manager, project manager, whatever type of roles, like can the team not work with those people as well, right? There's just a lot of different opportunities that you can focus on to kind of build that up. So that would be kind of like the engineering management takeaway that I would hope, if that's your role or you're thinking about that kind of direction, that's where I'm headed with this. On the software engineering side though, right? It's similar. So if we go back to the original example about keeping things, you are the only person that knows the critical part of the code base, right? We're saying we don't want that. So you say, okay, Nick, well, if you're saying that all that I need to be doing is working in the direction where I'm no longer useful on the team, that seems like that's not good for job security. But the point here is that it's not that you're no longer useful on the team. The point is that you didn't just have value that you added to the team that is only tangible as you're doing it, if that makes sense. So, to give you an example, if you were a very junior software engineer working on a team, and this is a generalization, by the way, I'm not trying to say that like juniors are going to be bad or something like that. I have to start somewhere. So, hear me out. If you're a junior software engineer on a team, the odds are that the work that you're doing is probably very scoped down. The impact that you're having is probably scoped down. Again, generalizations. And that's because you're getting ramped up on a team. You're relatively new to things, right? Kind of feeling things out. So these are all normal things. But when it comes to the value that you're adding to the team, the long-term effects of your value at this point in time are not really, they're not tangible yet. It's going to take you time on the team to be doing a lot of these other things. So if you think about maybe more tenured people on the team, they've been with the team for a while. What are some things that they've done that have contributed long-term value? Right? So they might have helped build a lot of the culture of the team. They might have helped with the software architecture that you're working on, right? They've the value that they've added is not like in the most recent PR, their most recent pull request or code review. It's not like a one-time snapshot of value that they've added. And as a more junior software engineer in the beginning, that kind of will be the thing because the value that you will have long term needs to be built up. You need more time on the team to start recognizing these opportunities that you can have to have long lasting value. So, the idea here is that as you're becoming more senior, it's not just that you have the opportunity to work on bigger, bigger business impact. Like that's great, of course. You might work with other teams, that's awesome. You might be leading projects, that's awesome. But some of the biggest impact that you can have is that the value that you're adding into the team, the project or the product area is longer lasting even to potentially outlive your time on the team. And that's where I'm going with this. It's that the impact you can have can outlast potentially your time on the team. So from like if we take a software architecture perspective, right? That could look like that you were helping shape the architecture of what was being built such that, if you were on the, I'm just going to make up numbers just to make the conversation a little easier. If you're on the team for 5, 6 years, whatever, and you're very familiar with the product, the code base, and you're helping shape the architecture because you're seeing the direction that things are heading in. You're very in tune with what's going on, barring any, huge differences in customer requests and stuff that ultimately change everything. But if you have the mindset for it and you can architect things in the right direction and get everyone moving in that direction, you might in your sixth, seventh year, maybe you're like, hey, it's time for a change. That's normal. And the impact that you had on the team in terms of that architectural direction is still felt long after you were on the team. That's one example, right? This is going back to like the value that you added is still being felt even once you are gone. You've been replaced by someone else. Your value is still there. If we're not talking about software architecture, maybe we're talking about um, how the team operates, right? So I kind of was talking earlier about myself as an engineering manager, but there's lots of different informal leadership roles on teams, and it doesn't have to come from someone that's incredibly senior on the team. It's more common. You might have like a tech lead position, someone a lot more senior on the team. But this could certainly look just like more junior people on the team that had a big impact in like the team culture, how they wanted to approach pushing things forward. I'm just going to make up some examples, right? Like people really pushing for um on your team chat, making sure for pull requests when they're ready. Like we're gonna have a culture that we're trying to unblock people as much as possible, or really making sure that your retrospectives, if that's something your team's following, that you are gonna have difficult conversations. You want to talk about the things that you can improve. Like this can kind of come from anyone, right? And the idea again is that you're offering some value that sure it's felt in the moment, but that could really help shape the direction that your team is going in. And that could mean that even after you leave the team, hey, the way that the retrospectives are running, like they might shift and alter over time, but you had a really big impact that kind of shaped how the team wants to go approach things. So that's what I mean about being replaceable. You should be able to be replaced because the value that you've added is so great that you don't need to be there any longer. It does not mean, and this is the catch, right? It does not mean that you don't offer value. That's not what I'm saying. If you remain there, you will continue to offer plenty of value, of course. But the point is that you are now able to be replaced because you've offered so much value that other people can step in and start doing similar things. And the most value you could add is being able to teach other people to do the same type of thing. So, part of the takeaway in my newsletter here was that when it comes to being replaceable, I said the best software engineers are replaceable, but they're also indispensable because to me that gets across the point that yes, you could be replaced on a team, someone else could come in, but the fact is that even, if you were to remain, you would be still offering so much value. If you go to another team, the reason that you're indispensable is because you should be able to try and repeat those same types of things, have a similar type of impact, whether it was architectural, right? Whether it was helping form that team and get those, I don't want to call them habits or rituals, or however your team operates, right? Like you're really getting the team on the same page to work together. Those are things that you could reapply on a different team. So that's the idea behind being replaceable, but also being indispensable. So I hope that helps. That's kind of what the last newsletter topic was about. I've been kind of watching the chat. You guys are quiet today. There's usually a whole bunch of questions that are like about trying to get careers in tech or, different programming things. So that's really the main focus that I wanted to get through. So I'm almost done, but I wanted to see if there were folks that had questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer stuff. Um, if it's if it's programming specific, hey Fran, great to see you here. Great. You're on YouTube too. Awesome. I was gonna say the LinkedIn crew is here, so you're here right at the time where I'm running out of things to say. So I'm hoping that people have some questions that I can jump into. Otherwise, I might just start rambling about some stuff, which might be cool, but I got to come up with a good topic. Um, okay, well, while I'm waiting, I'm watching the chat to see if you guys have questions. I'll kind of shut up if I see anything roll in. But there's a couple things going on this week. So I have on my channel what I've been doing. So when I say my channel, on my YouTube channel, I've been trying to incorporate some more software engineering interviews. So I'm meeting with a few more people. Francisco, I probably need to get you on the channel. That would be awesome to chat with you. I know we've talked a bunch offline, so that would be cool. Um, your question is going to be about content creation. I'm happy to answer content creation questions too if you want. Um, but yeah, Francisco, I'll get you on the channel. I think it'd be awesome to interview you. But I have a couple of those lined up. I'm doing a call with someone tomorrow. I wanted to mention this because I think it's incredibly important. Um, the interview that I'm going to be doing with is actually a former intern that I had, and she is absolutely awesome. It's been years since we worked together, but she had an extremely powerful little presentation that she did for us years back. And the context, I always love telling this, and it's going to come up in the video, I'm sure, when we get to talking. But the context was that as an intern, there was a sort of a women in tech conference that was going on, and she said, "Hey, like, could I go attend this?" And I said, "Absolutely, but I have one rule, and that rule is when you go to a conference, you have to come back and teach us something because we need to learn too." So, I'm kind of joking, kind of not, because like we should be able to learn something. I think that would be awesome. So she went off to this women in tech conference, and she spent time. I mean, at a bunch of different things, but something that she took away was about imposter syndrome. And like, to be honest, I think if it weren't for her talking about imposter syndrome, I probably wouldn't talk about it as much as I do. But it was honestly like a really powerful kind of takeaway that she came back to us with. And what she had said was that there was a bunch of imposter syndrome talks at this conference, but everyone that was talking about it kind of made it seem like, oh, like you're a victim of imposter syndrome. That's just how it is. And she's like, I get it, but like that doesn't help. Like I want to have something actionable. Like I know that I'm experiencing imposter syndrome. What can we do about it? So her name's Julia, and when she came back to us and talked to us at the office, what she had said was, I basically took a whole bunch of the notes that they presented at this conference and just flipped everything around so that it felt more actionable. So instead of sitting there being like, oh, yes, I have imposter syndrome, this sucks, it was like, what's going to feel better if you're experiencing something that you don't like having some type of control back. And the point is not that you just cure your imposter syndrome, but it's like you have some things that you can do to help kind of work through it, acknowledge it, make it feel a little bit better. So I'm going to be chatting with her tomorrow. I'm super excited. She just does an awesome job kind of navigating imposter syndrome topics. So that'll be going up on my YouTube channel. That will be it'll be next week, but it'll either be on uh it's probably going to be on next Thursday. As long as I stay on top of my video creation, it'll be next Thursday. So I'm very excited for that. Um, there's been more comments I've been seeing online recently. I posted something on LinkedIn about this yesterday. Someone was saying something along the lines of like, this came from TikTok originally, that people in leadership positions and in charge are not the ones that experience imposter syndrome. Um, and then went on to say something like, you know, mid-level managers are not leaders, and even some CEOs aren't leaders. So like, I don't know necessarily what they were trying to say, but the point here is like, yes, absolutely, leaders, including CEOs, can feel imposter syndrome. Tons of people feel imposter syndrome, and personally, I find one of the most helpful things is hearing people that are, higher level in their career, further in their career, someone you look up to, hearing those people say, I experience imposter syndrome, is one of the most helpful things, because you start to go, hey, I'm not alone. Like other people that I look up to experience this. Okay, like it's not the end of the world. It's not going to cure it, but it helps you kind of feel better about it. So I wanted to mention that. That's going to be a call I do tomorrow. So I'm super excited. So, Fran, I'm planning to start audio video during Q2. Nice. Okay. I try to join everyone that's doing the interviews. Perfect. That would be awesome. Like I said, I'd love to have you on. Um, yeah, start on any platform for sure. Um, yeah, Francisco does a lot of awesome content, great newsletters. So he's in the chat if you see him commenting there, but you can definitely check him out on Substack. What else is going on this week? I'm going to be doing a live stream with Maria, also from LinkedIn. So I interviewed Maria on my channel. Was it last week? I think it was last week. Or maybe the week before, and I'm losing track of time. I can't believe it's already May. My goodness. But Maria, she is a language and communication coach for software engineers, and if you know me, I like talking about communication and soft skills for software engineering because I think it's critical. I think it's undervalued. I think people don't focus on it. And that was such a cool conversation because for me, like I like talking about communication, why that's valuable, but uh, especially from her client base, there are people that like English is not their first language, and being able to talk about language differences, cultural differences, and how that can affect communication and stuff like that was a whole other sort of level onto it that was really cool to hear about and talk through. Especially at Microsoft, I've had in the almost 4 years I've been at Microsoft, I've had people from all over the world that I have on my teams, and especially let's say like in Mexico, for example, just differences in how they approach communication, cultural differences. It's fascinating. So I just wanted to add in like that's a whole other level of of challenge. So I am going to be going on. I think it's on Wednesday that she's doing a live on LinkedIn. So I'll be doing that. So if you can make that, I think that's going to be a really awesome conversation. Um, she's very insightful with when it comes to communication, and had to. It was really cool to hear her talk about. I don't have experiences with this because I am an English native speaker, so she was talking about individuals where even they're concerned about their accent, right? They're like, my accent is the thing holding me back. And I thought that was fascinating because it was like, I've never talked to someone as an English native speaker going like, oh, like their accent, that's not working. Like that's not been the case ever. So when people are hyper fixated on that, that was really good for me to hear, to go, hey, like if I have people that I'm working with that they don't seem very confident, I wonder if there's some better questions I can ask about why. So if you can make that, I think it's going to be an awesome conversation. um Nice. Okay, what major did you take in college? I I took the very traditional kind of approach when it came to academics and stuff. So I was in computer engineering. So I went to the University of Waterloo in 2007. That's a Canadian university, and graduated in 2012. So that was honors Bachelor of Applied Science, and it was a co-op program. And I didn't realize this, but a lot of people like don't say co-op. Like it's like internships and co-ops, but they were synonymous for me. So I had an internship program, and for me, going through university, it was 5 years. And it was 5 years straight. There were the only breaks were kind of like a week or whatever in between semesters, but it was school. It started off as school for 4 months, and then after 4 months, it was your first internship. So it's kind of ridiculous. It was really cool. I didn't like school at all, if I'm being completely transparent, but I loved internships. That was the kind of the thing that reminded me that I wanted to stick through it. Um, I hated math. I hated like all the subjects I had. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like this doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like what I want to be doing. And then I would, after 4 months and having terrible grades, I would go do my internship, and I was like, oh yeah, this is sweet. I love this. So, um, really happy with how that turned out though. I have no regrets. Want to go in the field of AI? I mean, yeah, that's that's good. I don't know how far along you are in your journey as a software developer. Um, but definitely, especially if you're early, I think it's a great time to start focusing on that stuff. I find this an interesting kind of area when people talk about, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You're in high school, awesome. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I think icon shows you're from Kick here too, so thank you. I think you might be the first person who's watched me on Kick. Um, when people talk about the field of AI, I'm always curious if they're thinking about like from their perspective. It's like I want to be working on building the models or building like new AI technology that kind of powers everything else, or if primarily people are saying I wanted to get into AI because I want to use the a like someone's built the models and whatever other technology, I want to go apply it. Like I want to take the AI and apply it to something else. Okay, primarily data science. Yeah, so probably on the other side of that where you're trying to create, whether it's creating models or looking at training and stuff like that. So that's cool. It's interesting too. Like one of the last streams I did, I was talking about math usage in programming, right? So this would be a complete a complete pivot to what I was saying, because my big argument before was, hey, like you don't need advanced math to be a programmer. Like the advanced math stuff is going to come up in the different domains that you're applying your software engineering skills to. But for something like being on the data science side, or it's going to be heavy in math. It's going to be a lot of theory. It's going to be heavy in math. If you were on the opposite side of that, so to give you an example, I build software that leverages AI. I have absolutely no idea about any of the math that goes into that. Zero. And I'm happy to keep it that way, at least for what I'm doing, because it would be overwhelming to try and know that. At some point, I'm curious. I'd like to dig into it, but it's just not necessary for trying to leverage it. So I wanted to kind of call that out, as someone who's interested into going into AI. If you heard any of my previous advice that was like, oh, you don't really need math, for how you want to go into it, you probably need tons of math. So I hope you like math. But that's cool. I think that's going to be obviously a huge area. I'm very interested to see how things are going to evolve over the next 5, 10 years. I'm on the side of the fence that does not think software engineering is going to be obsolete. I think it's going to change 100%. It's absolutely going to change, but it's not going away. Um, I've been reading some things about people making comparisons, like, oh, like someone said online, software engineering is absolutely going away, but like accounting, that's not because of regulations. And I'm like, if you think software engineering is going away, like accounting would absolutely go away, and they're going to change regulations once they find that they can trust whatever's going on with a high enough degree of confidence and they can save money on it. Yeah, it's going away. But I don't think a lot of these jobs traditionally are disappearing, right? I don't think that the technology just obsoletes the job. I think that it alters it, right? It's like we're using AI like Copilot in our software development. It's not like, oh, I never have to program again. I just become way more effective at programming and I can focus on harder, more challenging, interesting things. I think that's going to happen to a lot of roles. Have you ever been on a team where there was no manager before you and there's no motivation and nothing? If so, how'd you start motivating the people? Thanks for the question, Lucas. So, feel free to offer more context as I start rambling to try and answer this, because the more context you can offer, the better I can try and answer. Have I been on a team where there was no manager before you? Um, Let me see how to answer this. So, not as an individual contributor, because I've been an engineering manager for almost the entire time I've been in my professional career outside of internships. So, do you mean as a software engineering manager? Like have I been brought onto a team where there was no manager before me or something, or there was and there was no motivation? Or do you mean you are a software engineer on a team, there is no manager and no one has motivation? Let me know if you can clarify that. I'll come back and answer your question. I have some thoughts about how you can try motivating people. It's not a one size fits all thing, but let me know if you can offer more context, and I'll try my best. Uh, Francisco, that's what makes it fun. I wouldn't want to be 40 years old doing the same thing. Yeah. My thought process on the AI stuff is really like, I don't want to sound too harsh, but like if you if you feel like AI is going to replace your job, then like it probably will replace your job. Like you need to be thinking about how you're going to leverage it to replace the mundane stuff that you don't want to do so you can focus on more challenging creative things. And then sure, AI will probably replace that one day too, and you go move on to the next thing, right? That's why I'm saying I don't believe personally that it completely obsoletes jobs. I think that it changes them. And that's okay. You should be able to kind of move along with that if you're staying up with how it can be leveraged. If you're I used like a manual testing example before, but we can apply it to anything, right? If you're not trying to take advantage of new things to save yourself time, to make yourself more efficient, I think that you'll fall behind. And that has nothing to do with AI. AI just happens to be a good example of it. Um, yeah, and then in the chat, I think AI will change everything. I think it will. I think it's gonna continue to have very dramatic impact. So it's exciting. Awesome. Thanks, Lucas. I'm just going to read your comment here out loud. So, yes, I'm at a team right now without a manager. I'd like to have the chance to do the job, but the first thing I would have to do is build up the motivation, which was destroyed the last years. Okay, yeah, this is challenging, right? So, a couple things to think through are tenure of the team, right? It sounds like people have been around for a while because you're saying destroyed over the last years. It would be interesting to understand, like, what is getting people disengaged. I think fundamentally that's something important to understand because it could be different things. It could be, I'm just going to list off a couple things, right? There's been kind of like an air quotes death march to constantly ship stuff and people are burnt out. So they're demotivated, disengaged. They feel like, kind of the team feels destroyed. It could be that was fine, but they're lacking product direction. They've had like failed product launches and stuff, so they're feeling demotivated. It could be that there's toxic people on the team and most of the team is not the toxic person. So they're feeling like, hey, this hasn't been managed well. So they're feeling destroyed. So again, more if you, as I'm talking, if you want to keep adding any more context, I can keep trying to hone in on it. But um, how to build up that motivation is ultimately going to come back to, at least in my opinion, understanding why it's torn down, right? You could try doing different things, but if it's not addressing the core of the problem, I think that's gonna it will help. It's just gonna take more time until we can kind of arrive at what the core problem is. So, um, a couple things is like one, I would try to make sure that the team needs to get alignment, right? And that alignment, if they're if the only alignment they have is that everyone's like, yeah, this sucks, like that's not a great spot. But you got to start with some alignment. So getting people starting to get people on the same page and starting to get engaged a little bit is going to take time, but you have to kind of take little steps to do it. So trying to think of some good examples here. It could be like, the next time that there is a milestone that's hit, making sure that you can kind of take the opportunity to celebrate with the team, like, hey, like this is a really good job you guys did, like starting to build some rallying behind the positive things and building that up slowly. So someone basically has to step out of the doom zone instead of being like, all this crap sucks, like everyone's upset all the time, trying to latch on to some positive things. And unfortunately, if there aren't a lot of positive things because everyone's feeling doom and gloom, it might take a little bit of extra effort to kind of like, I don't want to say artificially find those things, but start finding them. You need to start being able to inject some of the positivity back into the team. This is going to sound like maybe a silly example. It could be a matter of like, you know, whether it's private recognition or public recognition, depending on the person. Hey, awesome pull request. It's really great that you were able to do that. You had positive feedback from the more senior people on the team. You could go say to the senior person, hey, thanks so much for guiding that person through the pull request. Like the point is trying to build up from the very basics, like getting people a little bit more engaged, right? It's going to be tedious for sure. For uh yeah, plus when I've been in retros where they're a therapy session, I feel listened to by my direct manager, but I know solving the root cause out of my manager's control and will have no change. Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff to dig into with this kind of thing, right? Like it's easy for me to sit back and not be part of the team and say, "Oh, it's just do this." But like even as an engineering manager, team culture comes from the team. I'm like my at least my management style is not to sit there and say, "Hey team, this is how you have to go do stuff." You can imagine how well that's going to go. Even if people say most of the team, say everyone on the team looks up to me and they believe in me, it's like human nature that you don't want to do things that you're told to go do. But if you can get people to come up with the idea, right? If they feel like they helped create the solution, then there's a lot more buy-in. So what can work really well in retrospectives is when you have people that are like doing the therapy session kind of thing, and I'm going to use a personal experience, not in detail, just like kind of in general, but when you have like this doom and gloom kind of thing, you need to get to action ultimately. Or else what happens? You spend your 30 minutes to an hour in a retro going, this all sucks. We hate our jobs. Like, product sucks. We hate this team, whatever it is, right? Everyone's upset. And then what? Like, you look at the time and you're like, hey, that was great. Like, let's do that again in 2 weeks. Like, no, like, you don't want that. Now, I don't think that it's a problem to have venting. And I want to share, this is the sort of the anecdote personal experience kind of thing. I when I was working at a digital forensics company, I managed small teams. Uh, one of my teams in particular worked on rapid prototyping. We ended up building a mobile digital forensics product that competed with a huge tech company that had an absolute monopoly in the market. And we were, I can confidently say this, we were extremely effective at how we operated as a team. One of the things that we would do on our retrospectives, we would get heated. We would get heated about all the stuff we hated. And I remember that there was one retrospective where someone that was not on our team wanted to sit in. And that person ended up going and talking to my director, and my director had to kind of have a little bit of an aside with me. And he was like, "You can't, like, you might need to think about how you're having your retros." And I was like, "Hold on, no, like, I'm not changing how the team operates because someone on the outside had a different perspective. Because what they were missing about our retros is that we always use that fuel, like the fuel, the fire, to go drive the change. Because we would get so, like, I don't know, frustrated about living with something that we were like, we have to go make a change to this. Like, that's how we operated. It's going to look different on every team. That might look like negative spiraling to people on the outside, but we made tons of really awesome changes. So we turned our therapy sessions into very much like tons of action out of that. So I don't recommend that for everyone. It just so happens that our personality styles were very much like that. Like, very sarcastic, very like worst case scenario. Everything about it we were aligned on, and it worked well for us. So, Lucas, in your particular case, like, you got a team that's feeling kind of down. There is no manager. The the role of a okay, so there's a handful of things, right? The role of a manager is going to be a not only like helping the team get alignment and stuff like that. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. There's going to be things like career growth and all of that. Those are things that if you are not a manager, it's sort of not your role to be able to help people's career progression um on a formal basis, if that makes sense. So like I spend parts of my days making sure I'm talking with career growth about people on my team. Like that would be something that if you're not the manager, you probably shouldn't do that. You can help, mentor and guide people, but not from a like do this and you're going to get a promotion kind of thing. It's not, that's not your responsibility, but there's so much informal leadership, so much that if the team does it, like it's great if a manager's doing it and they should, but without the manager there, you can absolutely be the person that steps up. And what's cool about that is when other people start to observe that behavior happening, like, hey, look, this person's not just on the doom and gloom wagon. They see some positive stuff going on. Like suddenly, and maybe it's not sudden, but it might feel sudden to some people after some time. They go, hey, like, I'm tired of feeling like everything sucks. This person's like they know what's up. They start to look up to you for that and they start to model that behavior. Because yeah, it's easy to complain about stuff, but like we want things to be better. So if you can be the person leading that and people start to see things getting better, people will follow. They will. But again, more detail on like specifics about why they're feeling disengaged or feeling like destroyed, like you said, that helps to kind of shape, and I can again continue to offer more perspective there. Yeah, the dangerous thing I see about venting is that it reinforces itself. Absolutely. And it's tricky. And I think that if you vent and there's nothing that says, okay, like venting's done, what do we do to fix it? Then venting's not great. So again, like I had no problem with my team venting because at the end of it, venting over, what are we doing? Like we're going to do something to make this better. And it was always about like driving change out of discomfort. And I thought that was totally fine. It was never venting about. Here's the other important detail I want to mention. It was never venting about people. It was never this person on the team sucks, or some other team, or even like this other whole team sucks. Never that. It was like it's never about the people. It would be like I'm so frustrated that we are pushing changes up and we haven't like other teams are pushing changes up and our stuff is breaking. This literally happened. We were working back and forth in an area of a product and we would make changes and like basically the next sprint we would find that all of our stuff was breaking and we were like this is so crappy and we were like tests. We need tests. Like, it's not the other people's fault, it's our fault. We didn't put the tests in. They don't know they're breaking our behavior. So, we leverage the frustration to drive change. Something I like now is the idea of side quests. If the main team goal doesn't motivate me, I try to find another objective to get the same job done. This is interesting for sure. Francisco, I'd be interested to hear how you balance that with what your current priorities are. So if the team has milestones and goals to hit, like how far on your, I love the side quest idea. How far on your side quest do you go that deviates from the main path? Um, so from the engineering manager side of things, this is really important for me when I'm talking with my team. I need to manage engagement, right? Like I know that there's business goals that have to be met, of course, but I stand by this. My perspective is that as an engineering manager, people first. Because if I put people first and they're pointed in the right direction that the business wants to be headed in, they will do amazing things. If I point people in the direction of the business and I don't put people first, then I'm not getting the best work out of them. So I always put people first, and part of that is engagement. Part of that is this idea, I love it, like of side quests. So as much as possible, if people are not feeling engaged on the current work, say I've had people that have worked on projects for a very long time, and I know that can be disengaging. Sometimes there's conversations about framing that up for career advancement. I never like saying, finish this project, you get the promotion. That's not how I lead. I think that's wrong, um, because it's hard to guarantee that. But I can call out, hey, like, I know this project's challenging, but these are some awesome opportunities that align with your career progression that you get to focus on while doing that. Even with that said, if people need to pivot and focus on something else to get some engagement back in, like some of these side quest ideas come up. For me, it's really about, okay, is there something else that's a priority that maybe someone else on the team is more skilled at, right? They're busy doing something else, but they might be more skilled at it. And I can say, hey, like, good example, one of my teams that I've had recently, there was basically no front end development work. This is my deployment team at Microsoft. It's a lot of back end work. And some people were like, yeah, like, it'd be cool to try this other stuff out. And it's like, cool. Like, there is work that is priority. One of our partner teams, we're basically under the whole deployment umbrella. And I was like, if we can have the tech lead work with you on this, they're comfortable with it. It's a priority that's aligned with our business. I'm happy to support that. So then they would get to go on these side quests, side quests. I think it's so cool. And then they could build up some of that experience and get that engagement back up. So, Francisco in the chat here, time blocking the calendar. I try to have quotas for myself and ensure I dedicate some time each week, but no more than 5 hours on those side quests. Yeah. Again, like, I think I would personally have no problem with this kind of thing as long as it felt like it was aligned with business goals. And if it wasn't, how much are we time boxing that, right? For example, at Microsoft, we do get to have like what we would call hackathons, and those are done, not, I don't want to say like done regularly. They are done at different intervals. And I feel like that's a good opportunity. They, in my opinion, happen frequently enough that that can give people a total side quest opportunity. Kind of go work on different technology, go work with different people, anything you want. Um, the challenge that I generally have is that I've seen, and Francisco, this would be kind of cool to talk about on a video interview, because I realize I'm the one with the microphone talking. You might have to type in the chat to try and get your points across. So I'm not trying to not trying to gang up on you with this. I wanted to kind of share this thought though. One of the challenges is that if there are multiple people on the team doing side quests and there is no alignment, then I start to have a problem. And it's not like someone's fault. I have a, I shouldn't say problem, I have a challenge. And the challenge is that I need to do a better job at getting people aligned to business goals. Like as a manager, that's what I want to make sure I can do. Because if we're spending X% of the time that was unplanned for, that's supposed to be planned for, now I have this weird like gap that I have to figure out. So I'm all for making sure that engineers have time to go work on other things. That looks different at different companies. Some companies do like 20% time, right? Like it can look different. So I'm not saying to prescribe to anything specific, but I think that that kind of concept is important. Um, we're all human. So kind of being in a position where you start to feel robotic or feeling like you're stuck on projects for a long time, maybe they were interesting, maybe you lost some steam on them. It happens. It's okay. I try to make sure that I'm having one-on-one conversations with people to gauge that. I've told people in conversations before, I'm like, look, like you've been on this project, you're doing an awesome job, it's still going. Like, you let me know if we need to find a pivot for you. Obviously, if that person can see the project all the way through, that's great, but not at the expense of them being like, Nick, I hate waking up and going to work. Like, I don't want that for anyone on the team. I would much rather say, hey, look, like back to what I said in the earlier part of the stream, single point of failure, right? You have all the knowledge about this product area that you've been working on. This might be a great opportunity for you to transition that to someone else, right? You can go work on something else after. They can get ramped up. It's a win-win. So it's not kind of black and white like that, but I think having flexibility and that kind of stuff is important. So thanks for sharing that, Francisco. I think that's cool. Um, okay. I usually plan these for about an hour. There's about 4 minutes left. Anyone else got questions? Anything you want to dive into? Devon AI taking over the world. Some other programming language you think is possibly better than C sharp, which it's not, because C sharp is the best. Some good LinkedIn exchanges recently about people talking about JavaScript and TypeScript instead of saying C sharp's not competing at the same level, but I need my YouTube audience to defend me on the C sharp stuff, but um cool. Well, I mean, we can wrap it up here. Thanks for all the questions. Like I said, these live streams are for you guys. I want to be able to have the conversations and kind of chat through different things that you want to hear about. So this is cool. Um I'm trying to think. Like I think I like doing these on Mondays, having kind of like an AMA kind of format. I do want to do a better job of programming live streams. Um, it's hard because when I'm programming, I want to go. I don't have a ton of time on my own to go do it now with the content creation. Mars, hi from Facebook. So yeah, it's hard because when I want to go carve out time for myself to go program it, I don't want to have a camera on me because I'm like I just want to go code. But I have to do a better job of that. I think it's I need to code more first of all. Um, and then I'll get my camera on and go through some of that because I think there's some cool stuff to learn. Thanks again, Francisco. Okay. Well, thanks, folks. I appreciate all of you attending. Generally, I try to do a little bit of an advertisement as well because I'm terrible at this. I'm waiting for the end when people are like, oh, he's done talking, like, see you later. But what I should do is share that I do have courses and stuff available if you're interested in that. So if I flip my screen over, hopefully this works. My mic's still going nice. So I do have courses on Dome Train if you want to learn about C sharp. I have a getting started one. So I'm assuming most people watching this are programmers, right? If you are not a programmer and you want to get started from literally zero, you can go ahead and watch this getting started one. These are paid courses. I shouldn't just say, hey, go watch it. You have to buy them. The deep dive one builds on that. And then there is a bundle. If I go back up to here, there is a bundle that I have, Zero to Hero C sharp. It's both of those courses discounted. So it is 144 bucks basically. And yeah, that's if you want to get started. I never promise people that you're going to be able to go build any application you want. Like you're going to be some type of pro just from watching a couple of it's like 11 hours of content in total. You will not be a pro programmer. That just takes time. But I do think that it's going to be really helpful for getting you everything you need to start building things. So check those out. They go on sale, like I think Dome Train's birthday, which just passed, and then Black Friday. Otherwise, I don't really know about any sales coming up. So check them out. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate the time, and hopefully, I will see you next week on the live stream. So take care.